Okay, all right, we're good to go.
You getting audio? Okay, welcome everyone. This is the November 12th Seneca County IDA Board meeting. We have a shorter agenda today, so it may not drag on here. We start with the approval of the minutes of our meeting on October 8th. Does anyone have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Ernie. Second. Any comments, changes, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes from the last meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have approved the minutes. The next item are financial. The next item is our financial statements. Mr. Kernan.
Thank you. I'm going to do a brief summary of the balance sheet as well as the P&L statement. At the end of September, our total assets measured $3,994,000 compared to August numbers of $4,101,273. A net change of a minus $64.13. The largest change occurred in the cash position, going from $3,330,000 at the end of December compared to $3,343,000 in August. Again, a net change of $13,000. Notes receivable were $159,742. Total fixed assets $355,400, and other assets $112,000. On the liability side, the total current liabilities measured $157,000, and that includes credit card of $838, labor and compliance pass-through of $54.45, net pension liability of $118,000, and PIF deposits held of $33,000. Due from other governments was $21,854, and our total equity was $3,815,248, giving us total liabilities and equity at the end of September of $3,994,860, comparing to $4,001,273 at the end of August, and that change of $64.13. When I compare the assets at the end of September to September 2023, there's a net difference of $267,000, a decline of that in that position. And that also equates to the total equity and liabilities as well. On the P&L side, at the end of September, our total ordinary income was $211,944. Ordinary expenses of $230,087, giving us net ordinary income, in this case a loss of $18,143. When I compare that to August, our August total ordinary income was $111,672, ordinary expenses of $200,778, and a net ordinary, again, loss in this case of $89,106. When I compare the net income at the end of September 2024 to September 2023, we see a difference of $48,772. And at the end of September 2023, we had a positive position of $30,629. Individual expenses and income. Agency fees at the end of September were $31,784. Seneca County numbers of $54,000. Rent and lease income $100,000. RFL income of $76.33. Interest income of $54,626. Measuring a total ordinary income of $248,043. On the expense side, payroll was $169,621, benefits $84,645, Professional fees, $45,640. General office expenses of $7,003. Administrative and tech, $10,966. Insurance, $25.80. Miscellaneous expense of $27.64. Travel and conferences, $945. Repairs and maintenance of $12,350. Depreciation expense of $3,024. And RFL expenses of $2,075, giving us a grand total at the end of September of $341,641. That's a brief summary of the P&L and the balance sheet. Are there any questions?
For business as usual, not a lot of income, which is
I would also indicate in the packet there was, we do a quarterly trend analysis, which shows our effective numbers over a 12-quarter period. It gives you an idea of how the trending over to that time frame, 3 years.
Any questions for Bob? Okay, thank you, Bob. Any motion for accepting the financial report?
I'll move to accept.
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have approved just the financial statements. Sarah, do you want to say anything about the Finger Lake Trail issue?
Yes, so apologies, we had last minute planned to add a revised inducement resolution for the Finger Lakes Rail project. That's something that came up as part of the negotiations that were happening with the company and the other counties. When they had originally filed their application to us, they were only seeking a property tax abatement at the time. But it has become evident that a sales tax exemption is going to be necessary in order for the company to fund all of the costs associated with a pilot, including agency fees and everything to each of the counties. So as such, they were working on amending their application to us, and we were going to get the resolution on the agenda, but that application is not yet with the level of detail that we need in order to be considered complete. So we have since tabled the amendment, but we will be meeting at some point to get that ironed out so that we can in fact move forward and get the public hearings and everything done. So keep an eye out. We may end up trying to call a special board meeting at some point, if necessary, just to make the timing of this project work as best we can. Rob, do you have anything you want to add on the Finger Lakes Rail?
No, I think that the IDA statute's fairly particular if you're going to apply for a sales tax exemption about the information that has to be in the application, and they just don't have all that information yet, so that's
So
what
with
Sarah's
this,
working
with this particular project, we were anticipating it would be very complex because of the number of counties involved. Has it turned out to be as complex as we thought, or is
Yes.
it less complex?
No, I think it's worse, honestly.
Why?
It's not helped by the fact that this agreement was originally done in 1994 or 5, so none of the IDA directors that were around are here anymore. I think there's only one that was around when a renewal was done in 2015. This was originally a 6-county agreement. Onondaga County just made the decision when we last met internally with all the counties. They're doing their own separate thing and are not going to be negotiating with the rest of the group. In a way, it's good to finally have that information. I would have liked it, maybe a month ago when we were first doing this. I think it would have saved us some time.
It was complex last time.
Yeah.
The renewal.
So we're moving forward now with Cayuga, Ontario, Schuyler, and Yates counties. We have a meeting this afternoon, actually, with the company. So we're still trying to get the details of what an agreement and everything would look like ironed out. And then we can start running our cost-benefit analysis. And as soon as we have that and have an amended inducement resolution done, we'll get public hearings set. And we'll be moving forward. So there's still a lot of details we've got to get ironed out. We've also got to figure out what the process is going to be for seeker for this project, because we need a seeker determination in order to do final IDA approvals. So we'll certainly keep everybody posted, but.
So did they ever have a sales tax exemption before in that period? Or is this something completely new?
I think they had one, or supposedly, I've heard from one of the other attorneys, Justin Miller, keeps mentioning that there was some potential issue in the past where the company was claiming sales tax exemption, maybe that they weren't actually granted.
I remember it being discussed, I remember it coming up, they were buying a bunch of engines and things, and there actually was a discussion about some more rail. So I remember it being a discussion, I don't remember it being approved or not, to be truthful.
And I'm not sure, I haven't looked back through the agreement to see, but this one would be likely a sales tax exemption over the entire, what we're proposing as a 10-year pilot agreement, with the understanding that this is sort of their last pilot and they need to get their ducks in a row with the state that helps set their railroad assessments and get all of those things figured out. But they have capital projects. They've given us some sort of high-level numbers, but it's not enough to satisfy the statutory requirements, which is why they still have to provide more information for the application. So they're working on that, but they're essentially looking at capital repairs and improvements through the whole 10-year period, and would be seeking the sales tax exemption to cover each of those projects.
Question, that's an update. We'll see more when we see it. Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is the research on statewide IDA funding mechanisms. If we just review last time when we went through the IDA budget, we had questions about how we finance our operation compared to how other IDAs finance their operations. How much of, essentially, how much comes from the taxpayer, how much comes from our own funding sources. So Sarah has been beginning to dig into that. Tell us what you have so far. Tell us the process and what you have so far concluded.
Okay, so in front of you all, this was sent with the briefing memo. You have the briefing memo, which has a pie chart on it, and then you have an actual printed Excel spreadsheet. So what we did was pull every county in New York State and then narrowed it down to the ones that have IDA. So you see all 62 counties listed. There are 57 that have a county-wide IDA. Of those 57, what we did was pulled their Paris reports, which is something that we all have to do every year. It includes lists of who our board members are, who our staff are, what our budgets are, so on and so forth. And so from that, we were able to determine which IDAs paid their own staff entirely, which ones with no real significant outside support, which ones paid their staff entirely, but then looking at their budget, turns out had significant municipal support and roughly the same amount as what their payroll expenses were. And then there were some combinations or cases where IDAs had absolutely no payroll expense, and then we had to track down, okay, these staff members staff the IDA, what other organizations do they staff? And so compiling that all together, we have 44% of the county IDAs completely fund their own staff. And that's sort of without significant support from any outside entity. Another 4% share the cost, roughly 50-50 with the county government, where either they get an allocation or they share staff that are paid by some by one agency and some by the other.
So Sarah, we fall into that 44%.
We fall into the 44%, yes, and we are in this spreadsheet. So I did include us in this. And then the remaining 53% have their costs that are almost entirely covered by other entities. So 39% is entirely by county government, 7% is covered by LDCs, and then there were about 7% that were other entities. So not clearly an LDC, but something that would maybe be chamber or LDC-like, where it's just a separate type of type of entity. So you can see the whole list in the notes. I was surprised to see that it was somewhat split evenly, although the majority of IDAs do have their costs fully covered or are significantly supported by another entity.
What prompted this, just to be kind of rewind a little bit, we received a letter from the Board of Supervisors, Finance Committee Chair, Beth Partee, asking the IDA to rethink or at least review its policy of supporting solar projects by pilots. And so in light of that, the issue there was really, is this the right thing for the county generally? And I think there isn't a generally well-understood mechanism at the County Board of Supervisors, I think, of how the IDA generates revenues to run its business. And so I asked Sarah to do this survey so that we can at least share that with the county, because we get relatively modest income from the county on an annual basis for our operations. So this is a work in progress.
Those two separate issues, or are you tying those together?
I'm tying them, in my mind, they're tied together, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd agree with that.
Okay.
So is this something that Beth did on her own, or was it the whole finance committee?
I think this was Beth on her own. I mean, she's wrestling with a fairly significant project up in her town, and I think the question will come back to us. Is this the right?
The solar project, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a big solar project under discussion up there, and I think the question she was raising, she wasn't taking a position, she was just saying, you know, let's rethink how county IDAs are subsidizing or not
Yeah.
subsidizing solar projects.
Because without solar projects, the income from solar projects,
Yeah.
that's a significant source of
Absolutely.
ours.
Yeah, and I think that's a point,
That's the
and that
issue.
should be brought
That's
up.
the
I don't
issue.
disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I don't think we should finance solar projects just because it's a way to make a revenue source. If the county doesn't
No.
want that, then that has implications to how do we get funded.
Correct.
And is the county, if they don't want that done, is the county willing to help some on this side where we don't get much?
Exactly.
But I think whether or not we should be financing solar projects or providing pilots for them is a separate
Separate from that.
argument
Yeah,
in
it's-
itself,
yes.
but it has an impact on
It's
how we
strong
make
impact.
money. I
Correct,
agree with
correct,
that.
Correct,
Yeah.
and what I'm hoping is that when it comes to a discussion with the county, we can help inform that discussion
Yeah.
with this kind of
And
data.
I think this was great information that you put together,
Yeah.
very important to have.
Okay, that's where this came from. Thank you, Sarah, it's a work in progress, we're not complete, it's not, would you say it's complete yet, or what percentage complete is it?
I mean, unless there is an additional level of detail or specificity that anybody wants, this is the full list of counties. So I would say at this point, it's complete as is, but I'm happy to continue looking into it if there's, if folks want specifics of what their budget breakdowns and
We
things
could
are.
go to the
that's,
nth degree on
you know.
this for another year. I think one thing, I don't know how hard it is to find or put together, but whether it's, you have to fill this out, whether it's job creation or it's revenue source, or, what benefit does some of these counties get? This is what some of them do for support. This is the level of benefit this county gets from the IDA. This is the level that other ones get. How hard that is to put together, you know better than me. So,
Yeah, there's some of that's out there,
I mean, I just think it's a good argument. If there's a lot of things that this IDA has done, and relative to the amount of money that the county spends, it's what kind of return is there to this county for supporting this? And that may be compared to others, but even if we did that for our own, which I think you do, it's certainly a good argument to have when you have talks with the county.
Sure.
And I wouldn't
sure.
average, I wouldn't pick a year, you'd say on the average over the last so many years. But I think that's a good piece to have regardless, whether you compare it to other places.
We've also got new board members coming on board
Yeah.
too, so it's helpful for them
Yeah.
as well.
It seems odd to me that it's such a variety of funding sources. So there
Okay.
wasn't any kind of a model, it's just kind of ad hoc as it went along?
I think that because there is not some set requirement as to how you do it, everybody kind of picks their thing. Some counties might be a lot bigger and smaller than others. Some may combine purposes of what the IDA does. They may combine it with other entities. So there's probably a wide reason as to why they're different in different places. To me, it's kind of how much benefit does the county get out of it and what do you spend? Frankly, I don't think this county spends an awful lot of money on the IDA relative to what it's produced and done over time. But that's a point you gotta put across. People don't just know that.
I mean, there's a lot of variety in the IDAs, and I think some of it too is born out of necessity. I mean, looking at their budgets, everybody's kind of all over the place. You know, some, are budgeting just sort of barely scraping by, and I think that it's basically, it depends on any given year and what you're looking at in that particular county. Some years they've got huge projects. You know, some counties, some county IDAs have land that they're getting fairly significant lease payments from, and it's sort of just a matter of whatever formula works. So, that's the sort of level of detail that I did not get into on this in terms of
Tough.
what exactly are the total aggregate sort of revenues versus expenses of any of these entities. I didn't think it was necessary for this particular exercise, but it is interesting to sort of see how much every county's IDA budget fluctuates.
And I think we can probably identify a subset of counties that resemble our county a little bit more appropriately. Rural, primarily small. Tourism driven, so there's probably a set we can pull out of this and say, all right, these are comparable counties in the state. Here's what we know they operate on, and here's what we're operating on. FYI.
Yeah, even Ontario County, right next to us, is a totally different revenue
Tompkins
business
County.
than what we are, and they're the next county to us.
Right.
So there is a lot of variation.
So more to follow there. Okay, next, Jeff, you are on.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. Couple updates from the Chamber of Commerce. One, the Chamber will be providing New York State sexual harassment training for local businesses coming up on November 19th from 12 to 1. So if you know a business that needs to get that annual mandate fulfilled, you can send them the Chamber's way. Again, November 19th, 12 to 1. Health insurance, this is something that the Chamber has been providing assistance for the local business community for 50 years. We started it when nobody else around was having that source of information and knowledge for businesses. So we've been doing it for a long, long time. Still not many people that do it other than the Chamber here for local businesses. And this is a really busy time for us. We have 2 licensed health insurance brokers at the Chamber, and right now we're helping guide businesses on navigating those waters of the new changes, how to get their employee benefit programs up to speed or changed as it might be. A couple tourism related highlights that I wanted to make sure, and actually one is an ask, this one is an ask. So the Chamber of Commerce is working right now to get Seneca County included on the New York State Underground Railroad Corridor. It's a brand new initiative that us and many counties across the state are working on. We believe it ties in very well to the women's rights movement. There's a lot of shared history between women's rights, the suffrage movement, as well as the Underground Railroad. We think that it could provide a bevy of tourism benefits for our community, and certainly visitor spending, tax increase money, that all of those comes as part of that. We expect and hope that the ultimate trail will be a 500-mile trail from New York City to Niagara Falls. It'll right now, what we have worked on, it's proposed to go. The trail itself will run right through 22 counties. So that's a pretty sizable amount of counties in the state that will be impacted directly by the trail, and of course everybody else will be indirectly impacted. So it's about a 500-mile trail as it's proposed right now. The ultimate goal is to get this route, this corridor, designated as one of America's scenic byways. So
Is the route through Seneca County specified yet?
right now we have it going right through Seneca County through on 5 and 20 from Seneca Falls through Waterloo and then on to Geneva. We're going to be picking up on 5 and 20 basically because of where the importance of Auburn and Cayuga County and certainly the Equal Rights Heritage Center there. So that's why it made sense in effect to go the route that it's proposed right now. We've been working with the county historian, the TPA, the Chamber Office has been working with the county historian to identify and inventory properties that would be relevant to Underground Railroad history, and I am blown away by how many properties there are that have relevance to the Underground Railroad throughout Seneca County, not just Waterloo, Seneca Falls, but we're talking all the way down into the southern end of the community. And so that's exciting because that opens up another set of opportunity for us for our county-wide marketing effort as it relates to the Underground Railroad. So the ask here is I'm going to be approaching this board to see if this board would be willing to support with a letter of support for this trail. And I can certainly work with Sarah to provide some documentation that that someone might want to see to make that decision. But ultimately, it's going to come down to support from the County Board of Supervisors and from the municipalities that are right now proposed included on this trail, which is Waterloo, Seneca Falls, and then support documentation from other outside entities, private businesses, if that's the case. We're trying to collect as much as we can because ultimately we have to show the state of New York that there is support for this trail, that it has been vetted by all of the tourism experts as well as the historians. So this is a big project. When the trail is right now designated to begin, if you will, would be sometime in 2026. The end of this year and next year is really our planning year. So it's really at the formation of this trail.
So the former county historian, Walter Gable, was very, very much an expert, really, very deep knowledge about this subject. And, you know, in the tourism business, at least, we always talk about the audience that we're trying to reach. And this concept, I think, would reach an audience that is large and not currently being reached by this area. And I think it's a great idea. Again, personal opinion.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Well, we're certainly excited about the prospects of this trail and the relevance and the role that Seneca County has played in the Underground Railroad. And I think there's a great story to be told there. And I think ultimately it's going to be a wonderful tool in our tourism mix to promote this county. So really excited about the potential there. The last one I'm going to leave you with is something that is a statewide initiative right now, and we're part of this in Seneca County, and that's a marketing effort underway from the statewide tourism entity to promote the use of PTO, paid time off. The employers, the employees of businesses across the state some of the stats I had that I wrote down for you. 12 million paid time off days are currently being forfeited by New York State employees, never to be returned in that for that benefit. $150 million in potential state and tax revenue is being left on the table with these 12 million paid time off days if those folks were traveling and spending money in their communities. So the goal here, the campaign here, is to encourage New York workers to take that PTO for various reasons, not the least of which is mental health and time off to recharge, right, and become more productive in your place of work. But use those to visit local destinations within New York State. And so that is one of the other big marketing programs that we're working on at the Chamber right now.
Any comments, questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. Interesting.
Can I ask, with the Underground Railroad project, you're describing it from New York to Buffalo, that's kind of east to west. Are you talking to the states south of us? Because the Underground Railroad was north or south to
Right,
north.
and there's other states that have their own trails. I know Maryland has a pretty significant trail as well. New York's will be the largest, as it's currently planned. New York's will be the largest, like I said, 500 miles, which would be the largest for any of the surrounding states. In terms of connecting, ultimately, as I said, the goal is to have this route turned into an American, one of America's scenic byways. And if that is ultimately ends up being the reality, then it will tie in pretty significantly to some of our surrounding states as well.
And who's behind this?
So there's a whole nonprofit organization that's been formed around this, and it's primarily now trying to gain traction from TPA, tourism promotion agencies from across the state.
In the East Coast, about every third hotel or old inn says George Washington slept here, so I can see, Harriet Tubman slept here.
Coming.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Ernie?
Tonight is, we're working on the budget, but tonight the big thing is the solid waste management, having a public hearing on that tonight, so see how that turns out.
Will there be anyone there?
I would think.
Is that in the regular county office building?
Pardon?
Is that meeting in the regular
Yes.
office
Yes.
building?
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Ernie. Other business. As most of you know, we have proposed 3 candidates to the Board of Supervisors for the soon-to-be vacant board seats. As many of us know, Steve and Tom, after many fine years of service, are going to let their terms expire this year. And we have 3 candidates that have been interviewed. We interviewed 6 candidates. We recommended 3 to the Board of Supervisors, and tonight we assume those 3 candidates will be voted on. And part of the plan is then to have them attend our next meeting, even though they're not official. Marie Weiss, sitting on this side of the table, other side of the room here, happens to be one of the nominees, so she has certainly seen us in action.
And still wants to join.
Yes, so that's going to be tonight. We also, we accepted the resignation of Seth Kircher. Seth's professional responsibilities with Microsoft just make it really hard for him to be present in person at these meetings. Apparently the guidelines for IDAs is Zoom, remote participation is not allowed for board members of IDAs. And so in light of that, Seth felt he could not really fulfill the responsibilities of a board seat if it meant having to be here in person every time. And so he was reluctant, but we accepted the resignation and hope that if his professional responsibilities change, that he could be involved again at some point in the future. Anything else, Sarah, on this, in this
No, I
category?
think that's it.
Okay, no need for an executive session that I'm aware of?
Mhm.
Anything else anyone has today? One last thing. We are going to need to have officers for next year. And between now and the next meeting, I may be reaching out to some of you to consider serving in officer positions for the next year. And we'll have a big party for Tom and Steve next time. A motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.